According to Domo's Data Never Sleeps 5.0 report, every minute users are watching more than 4 million YouTube videos, uploading more than 400,000 tweets and more than 40,000 Instagram photos. That is a lot of information being added to the internet. And that means there is a lot of information that we as consumers are taking into our brains. ये सब information के साथ करे क्या? Our brain is getting so clouded and overwhelmed by all this that it affects our thinking, our ability to prioritize कि क्या important है और क्या नहीं. इसलिए this question keeps popping up in our conversations, how to think clearly. And that is what we are going to talk about today. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Sid Warrior. I'm a neurologist and welcome to my channel where we talk about everything to do with neuroscience, your brain and you. Today we are talking about mental models. So सबसे पहले, what is a mental model? Imagine you're at a supermarket and you're walking down the aisles. All around you, there are so many different colors, shapes, and sizes. Our brain will constantly take in all that information, try to sort it into patterns that you can recognize, and tell you what is important and what is not. Our brain is a pattern recognizing machine. But how we recognize those patterns and how we use it is what today's conversation is all about. आपने कभी jigsaw puzzle solve किया है? There are a lot of pieces in the box, you take them all out and now you start looking at each individual piece to see where it all fits together. And when you find two patterns that match, that's when things click. The advantage of a jigsaw is that there is a master picture, one that tells you that finally outcome कैसा दिखना चाहिए. And that makes all the difference क्योंकि उससे हमें अच्छा लगता है, confidence आ जाता है कि मैं ये solve कर सकता हूँ. This is an example of a mental model. A mental model is a way of representing how somebody's outside world gets translated into their understanding. It is an explanation of someone's thought process, how they perceive the universe and how they navigate their way through it. Now the example of the jigsaw is also how religion functions. अगर आप वो master image follow करोगे तो सब कुछ sensible लगेगा और सबका एक explanation दिया हुआ है. But there is a flaw in this mental model because it relies on the master image explaining everything. What happens if you find a piece in the jigsaw puzzle that is not there in the master image? So you may feel sad, you may feel confused, or you may feel angry. Okay, how dare this piece come in? So how can we improve upon that model? Let's take the example of a building being constructed. You have the land, you have the materials, and you have a blueprint कि ये building finally ऐसा दिखना चाहिए. But halfway through the building construction, you realize that you want to add something. अभी आपको अगर कुछ change करना है तो वो आप blueprint में change करके final outcome change कर सकते हो. Now in this model there is more flexibility कि जैसे evolution होता है, जैसे नया information आता है, आपका understanding भी evolve हो रहा है. So to put it simply, for me, mental models are a kind of scaffolding. आपने देखा होगा जब बिल्डिंग बनता है तो उसके अराउंड एक scaffolding बनाते ताकि हमें खड़ा रहने के लिए एक जगह है. If you were in the building itself, it is very hard to make renovations or to make changes. That is what mental models give you. It gives you a space in your mind to stand while you're observing the new information, deciding on how to act on it and giving you space and time to take those decisions rationally. And there is a very important neuroscientific principle behind this. Whenever you are trying to make any changes to the way you are thinking, if your own identity is being questioned, your limbic system might get activated, your amygdala will get activated, and you might trigger a threat response, a fear response. You will fight against new information or new knowledge because it directly threatens you. If you have built a scaffolding, now your identity is not threatened and now you're free to use that information in a more efficient and rational way. So today I'm going to give you 3 examples of mental models that you can use to improve your thinking. Number 1, first principles thinking. Every problem that you face in life are based on certain core principles of physics, biology, chemistry, and mathematics. So the 4 steps in first principles thinking is define the problem, break the problem down into its core elements, try to change the core elements themselves, and rework a solution from scratch. Elon Musk is famous for working in this way. He's a person who enters into traditional industries like making cars or building space rockets and completely disrupts the entire industry because he works on first principles thinking. और ये first principles thinking आप आपके life में भी use कर सकते हो क्योंकि हर एक successful company यही करता है. For me, I use first principles thinking when it comes to neuroscience and mental health because I believe that neuroscience is at the core of all human behavior. So for example, if you're struggling to go to the gym, instead of being fixated on the final outcome of getting six packs, you should break the problem down into exactly what is stopping you, what are the interferences, how you can get over those small little obstacles, and what are the marginal gains that you can keep track of. Breaking a big problem down into small fixable complications is easier and far more doable. Now let's talk about the second mental model you should know about, the inversion technique. This was used by Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. They had a cognitive exercise where they asked themselves the negative of every question before they took a decision. I'll give you an example. You've all thought about being healthy, going to the gym, being fitter. But have you asked yourself what you can do to be unhealthy? If you start answering that, you may find that there are some things in your answer that you are actually doing, and putting it that way can actually trigger a different thought process. This is a powerful tool because it puts a spotlight on things you should avoid or on mistakes that you may be making but you don't confess to yourself. And another advantage of this technique is that you are facing the fear of negative outcomes. And now that you've thought about that worst case scenario, you can now be empowered to take steps against that. So if you're a student and you're trying to focus better, ask yourself, how do I distract myself? How do I distract myself? Make a note of that answer and you'll find that you will avoid those things much more easily later. And finally, a third mental model you should definitely try out is the Feynman's technique. Richard Feynman is known as one of the greatest physicists of all time. He is also considered as one of the best teachers. And that is the essence of the Feynman technique of thinking. As Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain a topic simply, you haven't really understood it. Whatever it is that you are learning, try to teach it to someone. Now, the advantage of teaching is that your brain processes information differently when you're learning versus when you are teaching. Because when you're learning, your focus is on memory and retention. Whereas when you're teaching, you are more likely to spot new patterns, find new metaphors, use different examples from your own life to explain it to someone. Especially if that someone doesn't have any prior knowledge of the subject, you may find yourself making the topic simpler and simpler for that other person. And in doing so, you yourself understand it better and better. There are many more mental models that we can talk about, but these are three that I found very useful in my own life, and that's why I'm sharing them with you. The truth is that all of us already use a mental model, but very often we haven't described or fully understood our own mental model. So using techniques like this actually helps us develop and refine our existing way of thinking. I'm very interested to know what kind of mental models you have come up with by yourself. Let me know if this video has been useful to you. Until then, happy learning everyone. Remember, neuroscience is everything. I'm Dr. Sid Warrior signing off.